by having a ceremony here in these great chambers. This building was rehabbed, especially having in mind what this building could be to everybody who wanted to use it and for whatever purpose. And no purpose can be higher in terms of what this building is used for than ethnic and historical celebrations similar to this celebration which we are engaged in tonight. I came to San Francisco in 1951, August 4th, 1951. And I came after being kicked out of college at Prairie View A&M in Hempstead, Texas. I was protesting the food allegations in the cafeteria. I had no idea that there was no such thing as the right to free speech and to protest at a black school. They packed my things up and sent me home. My mother was flabbergasted and embarrassed to tears. And that was the only way she allowed me to come to San Francisco and live with my uncle. My uncle's reputation was not exactly consistent with what my mother was proud of. And she did not want me to grow up to be like her brother, my uncle. And my goal in life was to be my uncle. When I arrived here, this city was just about to become what we have helped collectively make it. Because you see, when I arrived here, there were no African Americans driving buses and working for Muni. There were no African Americans in police uniforms. There were no African Americans in fire department uniforms. There were no African Americans wearing and being a part of the sheriff's operation. There were no African Americans working in the hotels or on auto row or doing any of the things that we eventually began to do. For your information on this Black History Month, the very first Black Toll Collector was a college graduate from USF named Earl Tola, who went on to become quite an educator in the city and county of San Francisco. Just those things that I recite to you. You could go to the Asian community and you would find the same limitation on what Asians could do or be a part of in this city. You could go to the Latino community and you'd find it the same way. And there was no such thing as anybody tolerated. Gays and lesbians just was not happening. Period. This city was white as you could get it. In almost every way. Just think when you think of the Chinese hospital, Mayor Lee, that hospital came about because Chinese could not and were not being served in the public health facilities, in the private health facilities in this city. Our city was dramatically different. African Americans had moved to this city as part of the people to do something about preparing this nation with resources to fight a war. One of my uncles worked in the Hunters Point Naval Shipyard. One of my uncles lived in the public housing at West Side Courts. You gotta understand that even in public housing, there was a limitation on where people of color could live. Period. That's just the way this city really was. I reference all of those things because in this year, 2017, we have come a long way. And we've come a long way because we've always been a city in transition, a city extending the opportunity to newcomers to be a part, a full part of every aspect of what this city is all about. Fast forward, when Supervisor Breed, the president of your board, spoke to me a couple of days ago, we thought about how many African Americans had ever served on the Board of Supervisors. 8. Can you imagine? Just think about it. You don't even think about it. You take it for granted because there are 2 now. There's been 2 in the past on some occasions. On some occasions, there's been only 1. Just know that this city requires us to be as diligent as we became over the years, as we went from suing the city for purposes of integrating the fire department, for purposes of making the fire department relevant for women to be firemen, the police department under the same circumstances, and how we had to make the effort to produce the opportunity for people to be promoted, how we had to literally be as militant as it was humanly possible and demonstrate in every way for the opportunity for fair housing. At one time in this city, if you were an African American, there are neighborhoods you could not buy. The Council for Civic Unity, a collection of African Americans and wonderful militant people committed to the whole business of equal justice under the law in the non-African American community. We do things like phony buyers so that at the right moment an African American family would appear to be people working for other people who actually bought the houses. My first engagement with the city and county of San Francisco in the efforts to do something about changing the nature of this city was to go to Forest Knolls, 301 Christopher Drive. We conducted a sitting demonstration. That's how I met Dianne Feinstein, who was then just a mother and a wife, man. She marched with me, with her kid in a stroller, for the purpose of making sure that that group of people building those houses would extend the opportunity to people of color. Yes, on this Black History Day, we've come a long, long ways. The reference the mayor made to the people who work for the city, nothing of that nature was a given. It came about because there were confrontations. It came about because there were demonstrations. It came about because there were lawsuits. It came about because this city was made up of a sufficient number of people who really wanted change to take place, who really wanted diversity to be a reality, who really wanted to extend the opportunity to newcomers. This city is very famous now for every aspect of what I just described. Just think about it on this Black History Day. And Supervisor Breed talked about the whole business of what happened with reference to the medical needs of some of our people. It was African Americans who stepped into the plate and got a change in the law of the state of California to do research on AIDS and to do things that needed to be done to provide for that. I smile quite often when I think of it, because it was a vote cast by Merv Diamond. Merv Diamond was a black man, Southern California, Lieutenant Governor, first statewide black elected official. Lieutenant Governor can only vote to break a tie in the state Senate. On this occasion, the man who made it a tie was a black man, Nate Holder, a senator from Southern California. he caused a tie to come on a bill being carried by George Moscone on behalf of doing something about the issue of what happens with people who were of a different sexual orientation. The Republicans were shocked when the tie occurred. Then Senator Moscone was so good at what he was doing. When Nate Holden cast that vote, he then held all 20 of those votes until Merv Donnelly allegedly returned from Colorado. We had made it appear as if Merv Donnelly was not in the state. And in reality, he was not far away. He showed up and he cast the deciding vote, and it changed the nature of how we treat people who had relationships with each other in private. They could no longer be prosecuted. And that spilled over into the time we provided research money from the University of California to deal with the medical problems associated with those relationships. It was black people who put that together. It was black people who executed that. And let me assure you that in that process, it brought about a significant change. We have been changing this nation. San Francisco black folk have been changing this nation. We've been joining with black folk in other parts of the state to do exactly that. Nelson Mandela's freedom came because a black woman named Maxine Waters stepped up and put together the program that caused apartheid to be condemned, and pension funds all over this country followed her leadership on that, and the results were a dramatic change. I cite these examples because on this day when we reflect upon yesterday and what we have done and how we've done it, you've got to know that tomorrow is more demanding, because there is no reason in the world why we should still have to do all the things we have to do to in fact be extended equal opportunity, if at all. Believe me, if you wish a real lesson in how this America has unfolded, and it's equally as applicable in San Francisco, see one movie. It's playing at the Embarcadero, and it's called I Am Not Your Negro. It is a movie of which Samuel L. Jackson is the mob narrator, and in which much of the footage comes from the book. It was written by Jimmy Baldwin, and it carries us through the history of this country in part around the names of three people, the three M's, Martin, Malcolm, and Medgar. It takes their lives and it leads up to their assassination, and it talks about all the things that we collectively have done in pursuit of freedom and equality. It talks about the confrontation over the educational opportunities where separate but equal was what I experienced as a kid graduating from Mineola Colored High. Yes, this is Black History Month. Yes, this is a time and place when we celebrate. But in the process of celebrating, memories must be rekindled. Because if we are 10, 15 to 20 years from today, really celebrate, it will be when you can turn the faucet of activities in this nation on, and coming out will be water made up of all of God's children. And we are very much a part of that. Please enjoy your time here tonight. Please enjoy every aspect of this celebration, but just remember, Black Lives Matter.